program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. So the Democrats have officially lost it. Now, they are losing on a lot of levels, but I want to tap the brakes here, and I want to tell you something that's very important. The Democrats have a secret weapon on their side. In fact, a few of them. It's not just the mainstream media. It's not just the deep state bureaucracy, which we're seeing how hard it is to root them out. But it's also a judiciary around the country at a federal level, and even, as Steve Bannon says, at a local level. The judge shopping on behalf of Democrats, and Republicans do this too, by the way, needs to end. You cannot have a district judge in California put a stop nationwide to an executive action of President Trump, who is tasked with managing the government as the executive officer of that government. But this is what happens. It's been used in politics for a long time. There's been some pushes to rein in the judiciary on this front, including a couple of bills have been offered up to try to stop the process of judge shopping. So we're going to talk about judge shopping. We're going to talk about why it hurts us and why only the Supreme Court can overrule President Trump if they deem something unconstitutional. A district court judge cannot, in my opinion. But how do I know, you may ask? How do I know the Democrats have lost it?
Oh, which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me which side are
This
you
is a group of
on?
Democrats
Which side are you on?
who come up with this cockamamie song.
Against George, we'll fight Elon Musk. No Elon's kept within
They've
our
lost it.
walls. We'll fight from dawn to dusk.
Oh, and Elon Musk.
Which side are you on?
Which side are you on? Which side
are you on?
I mean, it's kind of catchy, right?
Which side are
This
you on?
solidifies
Trump's
everything.
coming for our unions. He wants us all to fail. He wants us to bow to him, but we want him in jail.
Oh, you do, huh?
Which
Side are you on? Which side are you on? Folks, that's the position we have put the Democrats in, okay? They now have to come up with wackadoodle songs in order to get their point across, which makes no sense. Nobody's coming for the unions. We're just trying to rein in everything, okay? Rein it in. All right. With that, folks, before we get to that, I want to tell you about my friends over at Energized Health, and we're going to get into this judge shopping situation. EnergizedHealth.com/Grant. It is about inner cellular hydration. It is about getting hydrated from a cellular level. Take back your life, get your energy back, get the mental sharpness back, and start getting rid of that visceral fat around your organs, the fat around your waist. This is what Energized Health does, and it did it for me, by the way. I've lost 15 pounds. My cholesterol is down. My testosterone levels are up, all from I'm going to just say it. It's a very simple program. They've got a 100% money-back guarantee. I urge you to go to the website. There's a masterclass there. You can check it out. EnergizedHealth.com/Grant, and start this process. Little workout plan, but they've got daily videos. They've got weekly Zoom calls. They've got guidebooks. They've got recipes, everything you need to be successful and make this a way of life that will change your life forever. No funny, wacky fad diets. EnergizedHealth.com. It's EnergizedHealth.com. All right, also coming up in the program, I'm going to interview Paul Stone of Colonial Metals, and where you can get your free gold guide.com/Grant. But we're going to talk about gold in the Trump era and why, again, I guess the theme of this program is tapping the brakes. Yes, I'm optimistic about where the country's headed, but I'm not optimistic about the fact that we ultimately get to actually where we need to be. So we're going to talk about that and the threat that China poses and AI poses on your financial portfolio. But again, let's start with judge shopping. President Trump issues an executive order, and then what happens? A judge comes out and says, oh, you can't do that. Whether it's birthright citizenship, whether it's transgender policies, they go find a judge anywhere they can. Now, how do they do that? So Congress authorized 91 district courts around the country. But here's what a lot of people don't know. Like where I am, the Northern District of Texas. The Northern District of Texas has a whole slew of courthouses around it. So it's not just the main courthouse in Dallas. There's a slew of other courthouses. So if you go to one of them, you may only have one judge there. Amarillo, Texas, there's one judge. Now, he's a Republican. So what did Republicans do? They would go file suit against the Biden administration in Amarillo. And you got a friendly judge. And they would shut it all down. Now, then it worked in our favor. And I get using every tool available to you, but the tool shouldn't be available. We should get congressional changes. If you don't like the executive orders, then pass a law against what President Trump is doing. And if you're a Republican and you like what President Trump is doing, give him some cover and pass laws that will back up what he is trying to do. But this shouldn't be playing out in the courts. And if a order is so unconstitutional, to me, it would have to be the Supreme Court that would overrule President Trump, the Supreme Court. So that, to me, folks, is not what's going to happen anytime soon, because President Trump is well within his rights. And he is so within his rights that these lunatics just don't know what to do about it.
Oh, which side are you on?
I'm going to keep coming back to this
Which side are you on?
the whole program.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
It means we're winning.
We'll
Okay.
fight against Doge. We'll
Fight against Doge.
Elon Musk.
All right, shut them up. Somebody shut them up. Here's the thing. They're flipping out about everything President Trump is doing, cutting spending. They're exposing themselves. Every time they argue about cutting spending for coloring books in Cameroon that are designed to increase transgenderism, they're showing and exposing who they really are. So Speaker of the House, Johnson, talked about this. Take a listen.
As I said last week, the Democratic Party is in a completely different place right now. There's no identified leader of the party. They don't have a clear vision. They seem rudderless. In hopes of finding themselves, they've latched onto this new shiny object called the rule of law. Well, we'd like to welcome them to the concept. It would be admirable if they hadn't spent the last 4 years with their heads buried in the sand while Biden literally trampled over the rule of law with no objection. In fact...
So think about this. The new term for the left is constitutional crisis. Well, since when did the left ever respect the Constitution? And as you just heard the speaker mention, Joe Biden gets a ruling against him about the student loan debt. The court says you can't do that. What do you think he did? He ignored them. He ignored the Supreme Court level, and he was hailed as a hero by Democrats. Now, all of a sudden, President Trump says, you know what, I'm not going to abide by some district court judge who has no authority over me. And what happens? The left says President Trump is a criminal. Of course they do, because they're ultimately going to try to impeach him again, but they'll just look silly. All of this backfires. All of it makes us so much stronger. But again, why do you think Democrats talk about threat to democracy? Now, you and I both know that the United States is a constitutional republic. Normally on a daily basis, I don't get bogged down in the semantics of the difference between democracy and constitutional republics. Yes, it's an important one. But as you think about this, and I listen to them crow about constitutional crisis, I said, well, there's a reason why they don't use the term constitutional republic. Because they don't respect the Constitution. They want to change it. We know what they think of the Second Amendment. We know what they think of the First Amendment. They want to trample all of that. You don't have any rights. The government will take away your ability to speak. So why would they be talking about a Constitution? All of a sudden now they're for the Constitution. Oh, yeah, how convenient.
Many Democrats cheered that lawlessness, like when the Biden administration unconstitutionally forced the middle class to pay the student loans of doctors and lawyers, when they illegally mandated that private companies implement vaccine requirements, when they radically rewrote Title IX to undermine women's rights. Those things were actually illegal, and the Democratic Party cheered it. They didn't oppose it at all. President Trump, by contrast, is taking legitimate executive action to root out waste, fraud, and abuse in all these federal programs. That's what the American people demand and deserve. That's what they voted for. They voted for a real analysis and a real change, transformational kind of change in the way the federal government works. And the only people who take issue with it are these same congressional Democrats who never before had any issue with unelected staff or even bureaucrats running the White House for the last.
Yeah, the same people, the same people that are out singing this.
No, we let's get within our walls. We'll fight from dawn to dusk.
Yeah, this is the people that have issue.
Which side are you on?
These
Which side
idiots
are you on?
that really have gone off their rockers. They look deranged. Whatever. So Speaker Johnson's right. So this idea that we can go judge shopping, left and right, we both do it. This is a problem with the uniparty. They all operate on the same game. So I'm not going to be high and mighty and tell you, oh, Republicans don't operate this way. But when you go judge shopping, you now have a district judge in California who's going to say, no, you can't do that nationwide. No, here's what I would like to do. That if you go to a district court and you go to an outpost courthouse like the one in Amarillo that I'm talking about, it goes to the central court, and it's going to get randomly assigned to a random judge. First off, you've got to have random judges assigned to these cases. You can't go to a courthouse where there's one judge. Maybe it's a liberal, maybe it's a conservative, where you know the outcome of the case before you even file it. The other aspect to this is you limit the judge's ruling to the parties involved. So if a party to this is the city of Chicago, well, then okay. Then Trump's executive order doesn't take effect in the city of Chicago. I would still argue that's unconstitutional, but I could swallow it better that the judge is only going to have his ruling be for the jurisdiction that he's in and the parties involved. So maybe it's an individual that wants to chop his nuts off and doesn't like this order. Well, then it only applies to that individual and not everybody else. I would be okay with that. Now, in the end, I think Congress needs to do its job and solidify some of these things in laws, and then we don't have that problem. Now, the other side to the judiciary in all of this is what Steve Bannon pointed out when he got out of his trial yesterday. You know, Steve Bannon, what an American hero this guy is. Steve Bannon is not only a patriot, but he is a martyr, and he should wear these convictions as a badge of honor. And I know that he does, but it sucks, man, to be a convicted felon. So he takes a plea deal yesterday on this border wall situation. He didn't take any money. He paid someone to run the program for him, and they ended up building 3 miles of wall, by the way. They don't do that. City of New York, state of New York, that goes after Bannon in state court because President Trump had pardoned him in federal court, goes after him in state court. And what do? They had the two victims were like $40 and $100. So he takes the plea. I'll plead guilty. No restitution, no jail time, no anything other than a guilty plea. But he came out and he talked exactly about what I'm telling you now, that the deep state is so dug in, that the court system is on their side, that it's the judicial system has been weaponized against conservatives. That's the constitutional crisis today.
Existential threat to President Trump's administration, and I mean Doge, Elon Musk, Secretary of Treasury Bessent, Russ Vought, Stephen Miller, all of his people. The existential threat is right here in this city. It is the queen of lawfare. It's Letitia James. Right now, Soros has a DA that's running unopposed. He can call a grand jury at any time. He can set up criminal charges on the most bogus efforts. Letitia James runs this deal. She's got a pliant media right here, pliant left-wing media. She's got a jury pool of only left-wing radicals in the Upper West Side of this city. And she's got the judges. She's got all of it. And I'm calling on right now the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to begin an immediate criminal investigation into Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, all of it for what they did to President Trump. President Trump, on his Truth Social today, laid it out once again. The existential threat to his administration is this queen of lawfare, Letitia James, and how she has absolutely total control. And Doge and Elon Musk and Scott Bessent and all of them ought to be worried about this out of control city. Thank you.
It's true. Thank you, Steve Bannon, for laying out the truth as you always do. So you've got not just her, but you've got radical prosecutors in every city. She's funded by George Soros. So George Soros can call the shots of who he wants to prosecute and who he doesn't. And these radical DAs will jump in line. That is a problem when it comes to the Constitution, when you've now exploited the judicial system to go after political foes. Now, we still have this idea of spending. We've got a hearing today. The Doge hearing is going on. And, hey, Tulsi Gabbard got pushed through. Just an update for you if you hadn't heard. Tulsi Gabbard, now approved Director of National Intelligence. She will be sworn in, I believe, this afternoon. That is absolutely great news for all of this. Let's just go to some chat. Sherry Ann on the Facebook channel says, senators don't even care what you have to say or feel unless you're in their district. So why would a judge in California care about the president of the U.S. does? This is so wrong in so many ways. And again, the Supreme Court needs to jump in and do it. I agree with you. And I have often argued that members of Congress, United States senators, need to take calls from around the country. You don't just represent your district. You represent everybody. Just as a federal judge, honestly, represents everyone when they're deciding what is constitutional and what is not constitutional. In the Rumble chat, Sis 1995, what the F, man, horrible, the left is nuts. Talking about their new hit song, Which Side Are You On? Now. All right, so let's get into the spending, because one of my favorite senators is Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana. He always has a knack with words. I'm going to play you a clip of him in just a moment, but first, let me tell you about my friends over at Get21Now.com, folks. If you want what I describe as mailbox money, as cash flow money, direct deposited into your account every month, and you just sit back and you watch it roll in, you got to go to Get21Now.com. So they are a Bitcoin mining company. And when you invest with them, you will get paid up to 21% annualized interest on your money, paid monthly, contractually guaranteed. I have invested with them. I am getting paid monthly. They have lived up to their promises with me. I've been with them now 6-7 months, and I'm happy to have them as sponsors. Get21Now.com. Get21Now.com. The name of the company is NFN8. They've industrialized these warehouses where all these Bitcoin miners are. And I'll tell you, with this, you can get in on the Bitcoin craze, but you don't have to deal with those wild swings. And I've dealt with them. Bitcoin's up, and I'm rubbing my head. It's all the way back down $8,000, up $10,000. This, you get in where it matters. You mine it, they sell it the next day, they pay you at the end of the month. Okay? It literally is that easy. Up to 21%, contractually obligated, up to 21% monthly, okay, income on that annualized interest. Get21Now.com, Get21Now.com. My man Corey over there, who'll call you, is a great guy. So call him back when you get the message. You're not going to want to miss out on this one. All right. Let's go to, I told you, John Kennedy. Here he is.
It strikes me as breathtakingly ironic. The cynic might say cynical, that the people who are screaming so loudly about President Trump's decision to audit federal spending are the very same people under President Biden who wanted to hire 80,000 new IRS agents with guns to audit the American people.
Think about that. They're mad we're auditing the government when the very people that were against auditing the government wanted to audit all of you. You tell me which political party is on your side. Republicans? Conservatives? Make America Great Again Republicans who truly believe that you and your family know what's best for you and your family? Or are you talking about Democrats who believe government knows what's best and you ought to pay the piper and anything you make ought to go back to the government and they'll decide how it's spent? And we now see how it's been spent. Hey, if you are a new viewer to this program, please subscribe to the podcast. Download the app as well, the Rumble app. That's our main platform. It's Rumble. It's so fabulous with free speech. Please subscribe to the podcast and share the video if you can. We got a huge audience today, and I'm grateful for that. I don't know why we have so many, but we've basically tripled our audience today, which is great. So thank you for being here. We welcome you in as new members of Stinchfield's Army. So please hit the subscribe button so you know when we're going. Usually every day around 12:15 Eastern time. That's when we're coming up live. All right, more of Senator Kennedy.
As I've said before, if it weren't for double standards, there wouldn't be any standards at all in this town. The battle lines are drawn, Mr. President. The battle lines are drawn. Some of my colleagues have decided to support the bureaucracy and the spending porn over the American taxpayer. That's what they've done. And some of the same people, it's not just my Democratic colleagues, there are many people in Washington, D.C. that have grouped together and they've circled the wagons and they've decided to support the spending porn and the bureaucrats over the American taxpayer.
That's the biggest travesty of all. The American taxpayer is out there, Democrat, Republican, saying, wait a second, give us some relief. And this FEMA employee who sent $59 million to New York City luxury hotels after President Trump said put a pause on these payments, she needs to be charged criminally. She just wasted $59 million of taxpayer money. You know, I've seen court cases where people are accused of bilking the federal government out of far less than $59 million. Those court cases drag on for months and months and months, if not years. And this woman in one night hits a button and sends $59 million to a luxury hotel. American taxpayers don't want that. We have people in North Carolina that are still suffering from the hurricane, wildfire victims in California that aren't getting put up in fancy hotels. Do you know what it costs to cross the George Washington Bridge in New York City? The George Washington Bridge. You have to pay to get into New York City. I think it actually should be the opposite. You ought to pay to get out because, you know, that's people should be fleeing New York. But you got to pay to get in. $17 to get across the George Washington Bridge. You think that's easy for someone who lives in Manhattan to afford that, or someone who lives in New Jersey to commute into New York City? Come on. And yet you're going to pay illegal aliens, some of them $1,500 a month. So Elizabeth Warren has been one of the biggest critics of all of this. She got confronted by Katie Britt, and Katie Britt from Alabama did a great job. So I'm going to watch this little interaction. I saw it on social media, and I thought I'd play it today.
We are at an unprecedented moment. Our financial systems are facing huge risks from the economic chaos of President Trump and his co-president, Elon Musk.
President Trump ran on this. I mean, he said we're going to look for wasteful spending across our government. We're $36 trillion in debt, y'all. That's not only fiscally irresponsible, it is actually morally irresponsible. And the difference in this administration and the last administration is that President Trump is actually the final arbiter. And it's interesting that none of you had anything to say over the last 4 years when it is clear that our commander-in-chief was not in command. And if we're going to use the term co-president, then let's go back and say co-president Jake Sullivan, co-president Ron Klain, co-president Jill Biden. I mean, it seems that some of the biggest decisions were made during the president's afternoon nap time. And so I just think we need to be a little bit more honest about what's been laid out and what's actually occurring.
So that's what needs to happen. All right? We need to listen to people like Katie Britt and stop listening to people like Elizabeth Warren. And in the Rumble chat, thank you for Censored Germ. I think your viewership was tripled today because it went straight to your broadcast after Louder with Crowder ended. Well, Crowder's a good friend of mine. He's not lives not far from here where I am in Texas. Great dude. And so that's always nice. So this is what has happened because of all of you Rumble sees the value in this podcast, so they've been promoting me more and more. I think we're one of the fastest growing podcasts on Rumble, and so I'm proud to say that, but that doesn't happen without Rumble's help, and it doesn't happen without your help. So again, please spread the word. If you're new to this and you like what you're seeing, I would love for you to spread the word. The members of Congress, Make America Great Again, Doge Committee, put out this, and it basically sums up the situation we face today.
Over the last 20 years,
the United States government
has wasted
$2.7 trillion in improper payments.
Just last year,
$170 billion were overpayments made to dead people,
criminals,
or those no longer eligible for government programs.
Over $44 billion.
$44 billion?
$44 billion.
Over $44 billion were made in payments that could be here or not. They just don't know.
Medicare and Medicaid are the biggest contributors to improper payments.
Under the Biden administration, $764 billion went up in flames due to many factors like inaccurate record keeping or outright fraud.
By taking a deep dive into these organizations, the Doge subcommittee can effectively eliminate the money spent by unelected bureaucrats.
Putting trillions of dollars back in the pockets of American taxpayers should not be a partisan issue.
It's our job to identify waste, fraud, and abuse in the government.
We are done putting America last.
We're done putting America last.
We're done putting America last.
Americans deserve to know where their taxpayer dollars are going and how their government spends it, and that's exactly what the Doge subcommittee is going to give them.
So that's going on now. We'll have highlights on the Real America's Voice show tonight of the Doge Committee. My buddy Congressman Burchett is on. Maybe we'll see if we can get him on the program tonight. Marjorie Taylor Greene as well. Maybe she can come on with us. $764 billion that Joe Biden oversaw that was literally waste, fraud, and abuse. You've got situations of billions of dollars, millions of dollars going to Chelsea Clinton, paying for a wedding. That's still being worked out. And all of the other things that we're seeing is strictly out of control. So again, the Democrats are getting approached, and it's not going well for them.
Congressman, what do you have to say about the fact that FEMA just spent $59 million housing illegal immigrants while people in Western North Carolina lived in tents for the past 4 months?
All right, so this is Nick Sorter, who is confronting Ayanna Pressley. Radical Democrat. I will warn you this. Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, AOC, they're not part of the good old boy club. They're not the ones. Now, they may be making money because they get fed a little bit, just like every member of Congress gets fed some of this inside information they can profit off of. But they're not part of the real good old boy club, the club that gets Elizabeth Warren to a $12 million net worth. So they're looking at this. They're just fighting against President Trump because it's President Trump, and they're deranged. They're blind liberal zombies operating. But Nick Sorter, who does a great job, continued to hammer away at Ayanna Pressley.
What do you have to say about that? Do you accept that? Do you accept that? Do you accept the fact that because Doge exposed that today, it sounds like you have a big problem with the fact that Doge... I'm not blocking her. I'm not blocking. Excuse me. Are you okay with that? Do you condemn the fact that Doge exposed FEMA for sending $59 million to house illegal immigrants today?
Excuse me, sir.
Do you condemn that?
Excuse me, sir.
Stop the millionaire theft, the sign says, by the way. The theft that's going on, this is how out of touch they are. The theft is from the American people, by and large, who are not millionaires. That's where the theft is occurring, and they're defending it, which makes no sense and really making them look very bad. I'm watching the Democrat Party implode. But again, I'm also going to say this. The deep state is very strong. They are very dug in. They've got the courts. They've got the media. All of this is going to be a battle, and it's not going to be easy at all when watching this. So here's more deranged lunacy. F-bomb alert, by the way.
I've been told I have 30 seconds, so I am going to tell you that we do have to... I don't swear in public very well, but we have to fuck Trump.
Why do all these liberals look the same? I said this before. What's with the gray hair, unbrushed, no makeup, no anything? And I know people got mad at me the last time, but it is a common theme. There's a reason stereotypes are true. They can't take care of themselves. How are they going to take care of the country? Somebody please tell me. Hair dye doesn't exist. And if you want to go gray hair, fine. Comb it. Put some nice clothes on if you're a member of Congress. But liberals just can't. I don't know what it is about their lack of fashion. But they really do have a very, very bad lack of fashion. Folks, my friends over at Patriot Mobile, I have a Patriot Mobile phone, and I love it. Okay, patriotmobile.com/Grant. That's where I want you to go. It's about a parallel economy. It's about doing business with companies that believe in the things that we do. Patriot Mobile does. Patriot Mobile, this phone is what I call a Patriot One phone. So, yeah, it's my iPhone. But I got 2 lines from 2 different networks on here. So no matter where I go in the country, one of those networks is working. And I pick what network I want to be on. That's the great thing, right? So I pick the network I want to be on. And I'm always having great service. And not to mention 100% U.S.-based customer service. They call themselves America's only Christian conservative wireless provider because that is exactly what they are. If you use the promo code GRANT, you'll get a free first month service. And I'm only going to ask you, why are you with the other cell phone companies when they literally are funding the woke agenda? You could be with Patriot Mobile. You're not going to sacrifice service, quality, anything. And in fact, you'll get better U.S.-based customer service, quite frankly. PatriotMobile.com/Grant, 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT, and you tell them that Grant Stinchfield sent you. All right. As we continue here, and I'm going to get to my interview with Paul Stone of Colonial Metals to explain why we should not have just as rosy of a picture as we think. But I want to get to Jim Jordan and Marco Rubio, who both have great points. But Jim Jordan here, this is yesterday, House of Representatives talking about everything we're discussing.
Mr. Chairman, instead of stopping the stupid spending, Democrats attack the guy who's exposing it. I think the taxpayers of this country would just as soon we stop spending their money on dumb things. Like what was the example from USAID, some transgender comic in Ireland spending money on Bert and Ernie and Big Bird on Baghdad TV. I think they would prefer we not do that. Elon Musk is exposing in the federal government exactly what he exposed at Twitter when he purchased Twitter. What did we find out there? Big government was pressuring big tech to censor Americans. You don't have to take my word for it. We had the Twitter files. Oh, and we also had someone else in big tech send a letter to this committee and tell us exactly what they were doing. Mark Zuckerberg said the Biden administration was pressuring us to censor. We did it. We're sorry. We won't do it again. Told the whole world that in a letter to this committee. So Elon Musk is now doing that for the federal government. We think that's a good thing. And to understand the fundamental difference the left has with us conservatives. Democrats believe it is the career elected bureaucrats who are supposed to run the country. We don't think that's the way it's supposed to work. We actually think it's the people who put their name on a ballot who get elected by we the people who make the decisions. And the guy who got 77 million votes on November 5th says he wants Elon Musk working for him, the elected member who heads the executive branch working for him, every bit as much as the federal employees, the people in Treasury who are supposed to have all the answers, or in USAID who bid the career officials, working for him to expose stupid things our government is spending money on.
And they exposed a lot of stupid things. So here was President Trump's latest executive order. I don't know if you heard about this one. It doesn't sound very important, but when you actually read it and it spells out what needs to happen, it may be his most important executive order yet. This executive order says that every agency needs to justify the existence of each of its employees. So now, as an agency head, you've got to say, okay, why do I have this department? Justify it, whether it's to the people of Doge, whether it's to another group that President Trump appoints inside his White House, but he is the commander-in-chief. He's the executive officer, which amounts to the CEO. Justify why you have this office, this worker in place. Now, I would like to take it to another level. I believe in what you call zero-based budgeting, which means you don't start at last year's budget. If you're the Pentagon people are going to shake in their boots when they hear me say this. But if I was president, this would be the first thing I would do. Your budget gets thrown out every year, and you start at zero the next year, and you've got to justify to me how much you need. And if you can't justify, you don't get it. So you start at zero and justify up. Here's what happens now in Washington. You start at last year's budget, you put an increase on the budget, and then you go find things you can justify the increase with. Shouldn't work like that. That's not how a business would work. The business would go broke so fast. Oh, go figure. The nation is broke so fast. We are busted so fast. So, God bless these guys for calling this out. This, folks, is Marco Rubio.
One of the things I see a lot in South Florida are people that have been in this country that maybe came from Cuba 45 years ago. They've worked here their entire lives. They retire. They get $800, $900, $1,000 a month from Social Security. And then they run into somebody who just got here from Cuba 3 months ago, 29 years old, doesn't work, and is given $1,500 a month in benefits by our government because they're refugees. That refugee, a year later, is traveling back to Cuba 15 times. So you're a refugee fleeing oppression from a place that you now go back and visit 15 times the following year. And in the meantime, we're giving you Medicaid, food stamps, health care for your children, cash payments from the refugee fund. So imagine if you've been working here for 40 years and your Social Security check is smaller than the benefits going to a 28-year-old able-bodied person who just got here.
That's nuts. And that is what is happening. Nuts. Elon Musk talked about a woman, $30 million somehow. There were payments going to that he found. He's going to get to the bottom of that. I mean, the waste, fraud, and abuse doesn't end. President Trump says, hey, Doge is going to end in 2026. Please don't ever have Doge end. Have Doge extend on beyond 2026. Keep that going forever. That is the one agency that may be the most needed agency inside the federal government. So I think one of the takeaways from all of this is that President Trump, Elon Musk, J.D. Vance, the Make America Great Again warriors in Congress like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and my buddy Tim Burchett and all the rest of them that are fighting so hard, Andy Biggs, I could name a ton. They have an uphill battle still because the deep state is so real. The debt on our interest is pushing through the roof. So I thought it would be helpful to bring on Paul Stone from Colonial Metals Group to explain to us why we should not still have this rosy picture and we've got to take some precautions to protect our assets. So with that, I want to go to the interview I did yesterday with Paul Stone. Paul Stone with Colonial Metals Group, welcome to the program, my friend.
Thank you. Great to be back. Happy 2025 to you and everyone watching.
Oh, well, it's a great time in the country right now. And I'm telling people it's a great time to buy gold as well. You and I were talking, one of the reasons why it's such a great time to start thinking about putting money in gold is because of what's going on with China. We talk a lot about China buying up gold, but there's another side to this as well. Why don't you kind of lay this out for us?
You know, China, in a way, is a, you know, I don't really speak or spend any time talking negatively about the people. The government's decisions is what I focus on. Mm-hmm. We could certainly lay blame at certain people in government making decisions that are harmful to other earth dwellers because we didn't ask for them to ruin our lives or manage our lives, right? So we can hate them for that crap.
You know, I want to reiterate what you said here because this is very important. Our beef is not with the Chinese people. In fact, I think they're oppressed and victims of this regime. Yeah. My beef is with the CCP, and I know this is what you and I are steadfast on this. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off there.
Yeah, I mean, we're not like Philly fans that just hate everyone that isn't Philly.
That's right.
You know, they make it personal. They're the only stadium with their own jail.
All right, now you guys aren't going to believe what I did here. I ran the wrong interview. So I want to get to the newest interview, and I apologize for that, and I've got to fix that. Not good on my part, but here we go. Paul Stone, welcome to the program.
Hey, great to be back, Grant. So good to see you.
All right, so in some respects, Well, you want us tapping the brakes a little bit about the optimism for President Trump's plans. Look, and I know you're a big Trump guy, and we support what he's trying to do, but explain to me why you're not as optimistic as so many are out there.
Well, yeah, there's two risks. There's one where people literally think they can rest on their laurels. They don't have to be on guard anymore. They don't have to think about their financial future or their autonomy anymore because, he's here and he says all the best stuff. He says what we would say. If I sent you to the podium and you're running for president, you'd probably say all the same stuff he says, right? We would all say that. So it's just common sense. It's like, oh my God, finally there's common sense coming to Washington. But it's a three house system. I forget the exact term. Yeah. There's the legislature, the judicial, and the executive, right? And it's not a monarchy, although I'd be willing to have it be a monarchy for the next 4 years. So there's no resistance to that common sense being implemented in the system. Right, taking hold, replacing the inept, the incapable, the waste, the fraud, the corruption, the size of government coming in between us.
So do you think not even what Elon Musk is doing right now, we see that we've got, 20, maybe now 40,000 federal employees are going to take early buyout. The reality is, and I tend to agree with this, so maybe it's a rhetorical question, is this really is, even though we're talking about billions of dollars and tens of thousands of employees, it's still really a drop in the bucket compared to what we're spending, especially when it comes to interest on our debt.
Yeah, and so a couple of things, right? You can uncover all the stuff. If he gets access to the systems, then he's going to uncover all the stuff and he can reveal it. You still need that other part to the government to agree with you and send a bill to the executive branch for signature that would then become a law where all those agencies get gutted. We've seen a block on Trump's ability to enhance early retirement, incentivize people to quit their federal jobs, hoping that millions would quit. We've seen 2 blocks and a Brett Kavanaugh opinion piece before he was Supreme Court Justice, I believe, but an opinion piece, he now sits on the bench, explaining that, and I'm forgetting the exact term, explaining that presidents have tried this defunding thing before, and there's a term for it, and it's always been blocked by the courts. It's an overreach of the executive branch authority. We would love for it not to be. We would love for the government to shrink. I'd love it to shrink to 1/10 of what it is today. Give it a military, let the states be more powerful than the government. But it's an overreach. So you're seeing 2 court blockings of Trump's desire to even just gut U.S. aid. And that would also be prohibitive of anything that Musk would determine should be cut or, just defunded, right?
I tend to think those rulings against him will ultimately be overturned because I do think he's well within his rights. But I guess this gets into the battle you're talking about.
Yeah, from what I'm reading, it won't be overturned. And I really worry that by April, March,
put
certainly
a $20
by April,
gold piece on it. You want to put a $20 gold piece on it?
Yeah. Hey, what's funny is that $20 gold piece is actually worth like $2,900.
Yeah. That's
but your 100 penny dollars only worth $3.
More rich for my blood on a bet like that, which could go either way. So, even if the judges let him do what he wants to do, to get real meaningful change, it's going to mean exactly what you were saying. You need legislative action. And he's not even talking about tackling entitlements. Now, he did talk about tackling Defense Department. That's a start. But entitlements, nobody wants to touch them.
Well, there's a principle, right? The country gave these retirees their word and continues to give their word to people working that a sliver of your paycheck goes to a thing called Social Security. And when you're of age, you get to draw on that a certain amount a month to augment what you might need, what you're short by, to be able to live and keep you from eating Alpo on a sidewalk in a tent. And the problem is politicians don't pay, it'll look like you bleep that out. They don't pay attention to the future. So when you create Social Security and you make these promises in the 40s, there's 44 workers for a retiree. Today, there's 3. Yeah. So that's effing bankrupt.
Yeah.
That's so why. So this is the whole thing. One, I say, once Trump executes on all these things and passes all these hurdles, maybe then you'd let go of the gold and silver you acquired to make sure you had some kind of insulation from the eventual risks that will come, mathematically speaking, if he can't deliver on what he wants to do. And it won't be because he didn't lack the willpower or the brain power to deliver. It'll be that there's a part to the governmental framework that kept him from delivering on it and wouldn't cooperate with him.
Well,
so that's the thing I say is when you're on the other side of it and it's truly sunshine, rainbows, and green fields, that Irish poem where the wind will always be at your back.
Yeah.
When you're in those days, then maybe the reason for gold and silver is gone. But leading up to that, he's got things that just have never been conquered before, because to try and keep power from ever being too centralized. What if Biden was capable of eliminating everyone's student debt? Right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that protect us from a retard president that has all this insane amount of power from destroying the country. That same protection keeps a great idea set president from also executing on the common sense mantra and platform that he's trying to deliver on.
You know, I mean, even if President Trump did get everything he wants done, still hasn't tackled entitlements, which is really what's bankrupting the country. So that perfect world, I don't know if it ever has even existed. I mean, gold's been around since the beginning of time. I don't think there's ever been a perfect time where gold didn't serve some kind of a hedge, including going back to, the 16, 15, 1400s.
Well, here's the lunacy, right? So we've created pretty good air flight reliability. Remember American-made cars in the 80s? They were just junk. It broke down all the time. We've perfected stuff. So there is an evolution to much of our human experience. But when you look at mathematics, it doesn't evolve. So when you say like gold's always been in the mix or it's been around a long time, it's been the only thing that humans ever considered money because it's the only thing that ever actually is money. J.P. Morgan said this, who started the bank long ago. He said gold is the only thing that's money. Everything else is credit. Everything else is a promise. So like when we say there's 44 workers for a retiree when Social Security is invented, today there's 3. The math didn't evolve. The situation worsened. The math's still the same. You just don't have the money to cover these entitlements. The only way you have the money to cover the entitlements is remove them or remove the people that are expecting to get paid, which are the retirees. And this is, again, my common core message is governments have no vision. They couldn't foresee that eventually this 60 million population bubble that helped make everything awesome in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s was going to go on the cost side one day and destroy everything.
Yeah.
They never offset that retirement mass population shift. So debt is $4 trillion in the year 2000. Today it's 36. Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare is why. And those bills, Trump can't stop those bills from coming. No one can. Like you were saying earlier, you wonder if it could ever return to greatness or ever get fixed. No, it cannot. It cannot until there's a bankruptcy, and then no one gets their checks.
Yeah.
Then it's shame on us for never actually working to only put our finance contributions, our campaign contributions towards people who are real thinkers and real doers. There's like Charles, I forget his first name. Maybe it is Charles Schultz. Schultz, the guy who started Starbucks. He toyed around with running for president. There's a ton of incredible, brilliant men and women who've made it through the gauntlet of the corporate world and could be incredible presidents and Congress people. None of them want to put up with the media assault that they would suffer by exposing themselves to run for that position. So they stay clear of it. So that only leaves us with terrible choices. And that's what the government's been made up by for a long, long time. And we're suffering from that today.
All right. So clearly gold can be a hedge of those terrible choices. We know that for the beginning of time, right? So then we have China into the mix as well. There's this whole AI battle. Does the AI battle play into how you look at gold as a strategic investment as well?
Hell yeah. Look, I mean, there's probably 79 things that we should all be gravely concerned about. And obviously the human mind can only kind of focus on maybe a few of those at the same time. But the big 3 to me are the financial implosion, the death of the US dollar, because it just has no buying power at a very near point in the future at some point. It's only worth 3 cents. So it used to buy you 100%, right? Financial power was at max power, 100 pennies, 100%. Today it's 3% of what it once was. Doesn't that sound like something that's almost dead, has no power? because they're printing it to pay the bills. And then there's AI. And then there's the combo of supercomputing and crypto money. We are analog beings. We when you take someone camping, they're like, God, I wish I'd done this more often. Or I can't believe how great this is to be camping. It's because we're actually in our natural environment. We're dealing with challenges together. We're laughing together. We're doing stuff from things around us. We're stepped away from the electronic digital world of social media and emails and texts. We're dealing with a campfire and making s'mores. We're catching fish on a hook with a worm. And so when you look at what the AI brings about in this space race now for AI, it replaces jobs. So when you say, well, they won't let that happen. They won't kill your currency? They won't rack up $36 trillion in debt paying bills they don't have the money to pay? What do you mean they won't let that happen? Your government is at the helm and they're in the engine room. You're just in a stateroom. You're along for the ride. Hopefully, until they run out of money, their money goes bankrupt and then the government just dissolves. But one of these threats, and desperate measures make for desperate men, is AI, where it literally can get in between us and access to everything. It will run farming. It will run probably the court and the police system. You won't have racist cops anymore because you'll have AI making decisions about what happens. And it won't necessarily immediately just replace the people, but there's a drone flying over every situation that involved a cop.
It's frightening.
And it's making determinations on what the cop should do so that nothing emotional or racist or unfair happens. So it'll come with this message of it'll make life better. It'll eliminate these ailments that humans just can't legislate away from their governments. It'll make things fair for everyone, and it'll sound great. But then eventually it'll replace those cops, and it'll replace those farmers and those factory workers and those delivery people and all those customer service people. It'll replace anything that's automated, that's pretty much routine.
So if all of that is replaced, we've ruined all the jobs and it's all run by computers. So now what do people do? I mean,
exactly.
I mean, what do you do? And then as far as money and currency goes, if there's no flow of currency for people making jobs, the computers are doing everything. Well, really, honestly, I guess that's the only thing left is gold.
If you want autonomy. So if you're willing to sign up and enlist your future existence to live as much as you can, be pressed into living in a motherboard, that's where you go. Because the ultimate, it seems like the ultimate journey for the human being is to literally recreate God's world without him. That's what I'm seeing. That technology eventually becomes the power that we don't have to make life on earth a bit of a utopia. Either to show him truly what we're capable of or do it without him. Yeah. Because when you look at what technology from Windows 95 to today, what did it do? It replaced filing cabinets. It replaced a lot of secretaries. It replaced a lot of stuff. You look at the true unemployment number in this country alone, it's 25%. Actually, it's 27.6%. And I can send those stats out provided to anybody by this great economist named John Williams, who just counts inflation and unemployment the old-fashioned way, that way is always done, the truthful way. Mm-hmm. And that's automation. And when you look at the essence of any business, what is it driven to do every day? Cut costs, raise revenue, right? That's it. Cut costs, raise revenue. Right. So each individual company can cut its costs through AI, but every company will be cutting its costs through AI. And then eventually you don't have any consumers to buy the shit made by this company that replaced all of its workers by AI.
Right.
So what happens to those people? Well, they get the opportunity to go live life like camping again, or get sucked into the grid and be out there waiting for your government cheese and your government rations and all of your stuff, because they're going to have to be the ones providing you with the one thing we can never really store up, and that's food. Mm-hmm. It's the one problem we can't ever really solve. It has to be generated constantly, currently, because it expires. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've eaten MREs before. My favorite is the ham and egg. A ham and egg omelet.
You don't want to eat it for too long, though. That's for
but
sure.
My God, man. I mean, that is full. I mean, something that lasts for 20 years and doesn't need refrigeration isn't good for you.
All that happens. Sum it up for me. Gold protects you. Why?
So think of money as an energy. So especially for retirees, they've stored the energy in these tanks, these retirement tanks. but that energy is based in the dollar. So if the government's destroying the dollar, it doesn't want to, it doesn't really realize that it's really causing these problems, or it would stop. That's where Einstein says it's lack of vision, why the mind that creates the problem can't possess the solution. So if your financial energy is stored in the dollar and the dollar dies, and you don't have that energy anymore, if you've moved it into something the government can't destroy, then you still have that financial energy, which then powers you with the ability to say and do what you want with your time. That's all saved money does. That's all Musk's money does, and Bezos's money does, and Bob Henry's $400,000 in an IRA. That's all it does. It allows us to say and do what we want with our time. If we don't have any saved money, we're at work.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So you're just relocating your financial energy from a man-made, destroying, suffering destruction power supply in the dollar to something that can't be destroyed because it can't be made in a lab, it can't be printed, and the government has looked away from it. So offenses win when they go where the defense isn't. And the Chiefs could not get away from that damn Eagles defense.
No.
So they got destroyed. Yeah. You've got to look for how your retirement savings lives outside of where the threats are coming from. That's all gold and silver is. And people say, well, I can't go shopping with it. And I'm like, you better pray until your knees are bloody. You are never living in a world where you're going shopping with gold and silver, because that means everything else you're used to is gone.
Well,
it's literally gone.
I'll tell you, it's a frightening message, but I do think it's one really based in reality, and people don't want to wake up to it. I guess the good news is, and the bright side of it is, there is a solution to everybody out there, and that is investing in gold. I'm going to tell people how they can get in touch with you and your crew over there at Colonial Metals Group, which I trust so much, and I'm so grateful for your support of this program, Paul.
Thank you.
So thanks for coming on today. Let me tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Thanks.
All right, you got it. Let me put this up here, folks. The easiest way is just to go to the website, freegoldguide.com/Grant. There's a great guide to owning gold there. And more importantly, talk to them about what is right for you. They've got all kinds of investment strategies. Take an existing 401k or IRA, turn it into a gold IRA, a partial of it, and start the process of protecting your portfolio. That is what it's all about. And I think Paul Stone summed it up best as to why you really need to think about making this part of your portfolio protection maneuver. So Colonial Metals Group, again, I can choose from a lot of gold companies. These guys are here, and I choose them because I trust them, and they support so many of my friends here on Rumble and beyond. They're really committed to helping us get the truth out, too, and I believe in a parallel economy. Support the companies you believe in. So got the QR code up in the corner. Again, the number is 800-458-7356, 800-458-7356, freegoldguide.com/Grant. All right, it's always great having them on the program. We're grateful to Colonial Metals. So Jasmine Crockett, this woman is off her rocker. Crockett, whatever. She was on a recent podcast, and I'm going to play a couple clips for you because she sums up the lunacy of the left here.
Give it back to the daggone Native Americans, and then we can't go back nowhere else. And let's see how y'all like it.
Start over.
Because the colonizers, y'all the colonizers, but that's a whole other story. So
You're the colonizer.
I'm just saying.
She's just saying. You folks out there, you're colonizers, all you white folks that are trying to oppress who? Who are we trying to oppress? You know, I owned a trucking company. I ran 15 18-wheelers for FedEx. And FedEx was a great company to contract with, and I was so grateful. We had a lot of success. I sold that company. I had drivers of all colors. Many Hispanic, many black, some white. You know the only ones that didn't work out? I mean, I hate to say that. I'm going to sound sexist. The women drivers. So I'm told husband-wife teams make great if you have a running teams, but the women were the worst truck drivers going. Not that they were bad at driving. They couldn't move stuff around. They were unreliable and everything. And I'm just telling you as a perspective of going through and hiring lots of drivers. Over the course of the 6-7 years that I owned that company, I'll bet you I had, I don't know, I'll bet you there was 150, 200 drivers came through. And the few women that I had were not very good. Everybody else, great. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what religion you had. I had Muslims that worked for me. Just work hard. But this woman wants to think that all of us are out there to get her. Here she is again.
I do believe that fear is truly warranted in the sense that people of color are just going to be rounded up. I mean, we've lived it, especially as Black folk in this country, right? Like, it's the racial profiling. And so
rounded up. So she's going down the road of the immigration ICE raids. And she's thinking that Black folks are just going to be confused for an illegal, and they're just going and scooping up anybody with a different color than white and then ask for their papers. That's not how it works, ding dong.
whether you're a U.S. citizen, whether you are here as a DACA recipient, whether you are undocumented, whether you are naturalized, whatever your situation is, I think that if you can be mistaken for being a brown person, that you should be concerned, because there is nothing that is tatted on anybody's head that says I'm undocumented or I'm a citizen, right?
What does that woman in the pink and the blonde hair think sitting next to her? I mean, she's literally slamming you, sister. Black people are not going to be rounded up. Brown people are going to be rounded up. If you broke the law, and that includes breaking into the country, that is a crime, then you run the risk of getting arrested. They're going to start with the most violent, the most evil, the ones that have deportation orders right away. But if you're standing next to one of those and you're here illegally, you're getting scooped up too. And you made the ultimate decision to break into the country. Now, for Black American citizens, folks, you don't have anything to worry about. Nothing. And I think you know that. But this woman is trying to instill fear in every single person that isn't a white person. This is what we talk about when we talk about how they want to divide us. It's not going to work because they end up sounding ridiculous. They really do. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us today. I'm so grateful to all you new viewers. Please subscribe to the podcast. Thank you to Crowder for letting me follow up after his program. This is the Wellness Company kit that I talk often about. It's got 8 of the most important prescription medications, including ivermectin, in here. I know many of you are prepared for anything, but I'm going to ask you, do you have prescription medications? Because the drugstores are closed down, and your kid has something go wrong, or you have something go wrong, and we're in a time where you can't get your hands on drugs. You need one of these prescription medication kits. This has you the ultimate form of preparedness. Ivermectin in here as well. Then there's also this. This is the field kit. It is waterproof. It is the ultimate kit for being protected. And if I open it up real quick here, you will see that, there we go. It's got steroids in here, inhalers in here. There's an EpiPen in here. There's all kinds of stuff that you would need, including the guidebook. That's a great product, too. So, again, the Wellness Company, check them out. I'm grateful to their support of this program. They do such a great job. TWC.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for a 10% off. TWC.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT. And then, of course, my website, GrantStinchfield.com. Sign up for the email list there. We don't spam you with emails. We send one out about every day, filling you in on the podcast. If you miss it, you can just hit the link and you go back and watch it. And then in case... Gosh, if we ever get canceled, been canceled before, I've got a way to get in touch with you. And that's the key to Stinchfield's Army strength. So GrantStinchfield.com, GrantStinchfield.com, Stinchfield1776 on most of the social media platforms. Thank you for watching, everybody. Stinchfield's Army rolls. We'll see you on the Real America's Voice show tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see you there.